Showtime!
Ladies and gentlemen, please make your way to your seats.
Showtime!
Please make your way to your seats. The show is about to begin.
Showtime!
Let the magic begin.
Ferrari patents their new hydrogen-powered engine.
Yes. More solidification that hydrogen is the future. Love it. Love it. Love that Ferrari's behind it. Hopefully, my favorite car maker, Koenigsegg, will get behind it. That guy, Christian von Koenigsegg, just on a side note, is the things that he's invented, the things that he's come up with, the fastest revving engine, one of the best EV engines out there, most efficient and most powerful. I think 700 horsepower in this little thing. But we're talking hydrogen. So hopefully more come on board. I know. Oh, one of the things we'll talk about next time in a future episode is Porsche has developed a new engine as well. It's not fully hydrogen, but it's something in between. So it's really cool. But let's dive into this one. This is from a patent that they recently filed for hydrogen-powered ICE, which stands for internal combustion engine, which is showing that their interest in hydrogen fuel as a way to reduce emissions from their performance cars. So the thing that we're, if just as a side note too, that if you're seeing or if you're following the news, a lot of car makers are pulling back on their EV promises and as far as manufacturing promises and production things. So who knows what that means, but this is great for hydrogen. So the key distinction from a hydrogen fuel cell vehicle is that Ferrari's concept involves burning hydrogen in an internal combustion engine instead of gasoline. So obviously it would eliminate carbon dioxide emissions and produce water vapor and trace pollutants. I think it shows that hydrogen combustion has future potential even as electrification grows. Hydrogen fuel would allow Ferrari to maintain the distinctive feel of combustion power while reducing environmental impact. However, as we talk every time when we bring up hydrogen, there's infrastructure challenges. Limited hydrogen refueling stations have obviously frustrated fuel cell car owners already. And then manufacturing hydrogen renewably is also it's critical for true emissions reductions. But regardless of that, it's still better than the EV currently. So the other thing too is weight and size of hydrogen fuel cell systems that are obstacles. But Ferrari admits that their hydrogen car would be larger than gas-powered equivalents. So the other thing is quick refueling could be counterbalanced by reduced energy density compared to gasoline. So overall, the patent highlights that hydrogen combustion remains of interest to sports car brands eyeing low carbon alternatives to preserve their gasoline powered lineage. It offers promise, but obviously needs more work. The patent itself does contain some technical details that give clues into Ferrari's thinking. For example, they propose a high pressure direct injection system for the hydrogen fuel, as well as discuss modifications needed to prevent backfire into the intake and different things like that. So really cool. Love hydrogen. Awesome.
Yeah, the car looks great. I thought I saw something where it was 650 horsepower. I'm not sure if that's what's in here, but what they're doing is amazing with the internal combustion engine. Now, one of the things that maybe we should explain to people is the difference between an internal combustion hydrogen engine and a fuel cell based car.
Yes.
And do you want to do that or do you want me to?
No, go ahead. No, go. Yeah, no. I talk too much during these, so yeah. You go.
So at a layman's level, the fuel cell based vehicle is an electric vehicle powered by a hydrogen fuel cell, meaning it has an electric motor. And it is considered zero emissions. While the internal combustion engine is like a regular engine, except it uses hydrogen instead of gas, and it produces water, but there's also some emissions because the engine heats up to a certain level and there's oils involved that come off it, which is why I'm surprised they say this is zero emission. But those are the difference between the two, is one is an electric motor and one is an actual internal combustion engine. That's basically the big difference.
Yeah.
So I was surprised when they said zero emissions for this, but it's a fraction of what a gasoline powered car is, and I'm saying a fraction, like 1%, less than 1%.
Yeah,
I haven't seen the numbers.
I think it's like 99% less emissions than a gasoline powered internal combustion engine.
Yeah, and so I just want to keep that in mind. But imagine that, going down to a fraction of what we are today with something like this. Now, I've seen some unique stuff. One of the unique things was the way they, where they store the hydrogen tanks, and apparently the engine is upside down.
Is it? I missed that.
Oh, I thought I was gonna wait for you to.
Wow, you picked up on that. I must have missed that. That's cool. That's interesting. Is that maybe how they're going to reduce backfire?
I don't know, but I was doing my research, and I was looking at this stuff. So the engine is upside down, which a lot of people complained about, but they've done some really cool things about making it accessible. So the stuff that you would normally get at the top is right at the bottom, so it's easy to have access to. And normally with the types of fuel cells they have to do, they would have to make a longer wheelbase, and they don't want to do that because of performance and whatnot. So what they've done is they flip the engine upside down and then tuck the two fuel cells right along where the engine is, the fuel tanks for the hydrogen. And that allows it to be, I guess, compact with the engine, because that's why they flipped it over, is to make space for those hydrogen tanks.
Does it show where they store the hydrogen tanks themselves? Like, does it show a skeleton? Or
I'll find something on that. Sorry, I should have pulled that video up. I was looking at it because it's really cool on some of the stuff they're doing. So I'll ask you a couple of questions. So where are we from a hydrogen infrastructure? We keep talking about, oh, this is great, look at all this future technology, but when are we going to see hydrogen fill-up stations in most towns?
We're nowhere. We're actually going backwards with hydrogen, and I think we've touched on this a couple of times. But based on what I've seen in my research, I think there's in Canada 1, maybe 2 fuel cell, and I think they're in BC. I don't even think there's one in Ontario. I could be wrong. So I think Europe might be further along than North America when it comes to hydrogen, when it comes to the hydrogen infrastructure. But the cool thing is that current infrastructure can be retooled or redesigned to be used to transport hydrogen. For example, the natural gas pipelines that can be retooled or redesigned to carry hydrogen, or to transport hydrogen. So, but we're a long ways away from a proper infrastructure, and there needs to be someone that gets behind this. And I was actually just, I think you and I maybe touched on this, but there was a sale of 20 gas stations, and I figured, oh, that's great to buy those and convert those to hydrogen fueling stations. But again, there's no real cars that demand it right now, except for, I think Toyota still has one, and I believe BMW has one on the road. I could be wrong, but I think that's it for now as far as fuel cell technology.
Yeah, I'm not 100%. I know Toyota's got one. I know another company took one off.
Hyundai has one now. Yeah,
there you go.
Yeah,
and it's hard to sell only because there's not enough fueling stations around.
Well, and this gets into the problem still that we have. So the range isn't there yet. So the efficiency isn't there. The cost is super high. I think we did an episode where we looked at how much it costs to fill up one of those, and I think it was like $200, and you only get, I think, 200 miles out of it or 300 miles out of it, and that was based on the Toyota. So, but it's good to see that all of these manufacturers, car manufacturers, are putting their money behind hydrogen, because if we can get to a clean hydrogen production, but even if we're not clean hydrogen, it's still way better than mining lithium. and those batteries, because those batteries are hard to recycle as well. So the cool thing, and what you talked about, the cool thing about Ferrari's technology is that it's essentially a car that runs on hydrogen, as opposed to a battery recharging hydrogen fuel cell car, if that makes sense. So
yeah,
less weight.
I put a video on here that we're watching that's kind of describing the engine. If people are keep going.
Yeah. And so, not that I'm saying that EVs are bad, just the current technology, the current battery technology for EVs is horrible. And the way that they produce it, the way that they can't be recycled very easily, like there's just so many things. And if we can just, if we can just produce cars with a similar engine to gasoline burning engines, all we need to do is solve the storage problem. And obviously,
like our grid and whatnot cannot currently sustain us moving into 100% EVs. Never mind, there's no secondhand market because currently the batteries aren't recyclable or reusable. Who wants to buy a 5-year-old Tesla when you're not sure where the batteries are in their life cycle, and that's 70% of cost of the vehicle. The tires wear faster because they're heavier. There's all these things. So, which I not necessarily saying they're bad. We're just learning these things as life goes on and saying, okay, well and as you say, the lithium and the issues with the battery process and stuff, there's a lot of it. Apparently it's a 10-year environmental impact. So we have to really start thinking about what's the next step. And hydrogen, one, is apparently the most common element on the planet, and most abundant, most common, and we can get it anywhere. And the result of this is water, which when we talk about a electric fuel cell based car, we're talking about zero emissions, and pretty close to zero emissions if we're talking about a good internal combustion hydrogen vehicle. And being able, either fuel cell wise or internal combustion wise, being able to pull up the tank, the benefits are you can refuel within 5 minutes. As far as costing goes, while I was researching for this video, I found some saying that it's about twice as much. This person was filling up their tank and it was $100 and a regular tank was $45. But at the same time, they got $15,000 of free fuel for the first 3 years. So it didn't cost them anything. And they were, the distance isn't quite there, but it's not too bad. It's 200 to 300 miles a tank.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But, and that's where we're going to have to get in order for an engine without a battery, for a car without a battery, in order for that to be viable, we need to increase that range. And we've covered some technologies previously that could potentially do that, like storing hydrogen high pressure at room temperature. That's key. But yeah, there's a lot of we're close. But one of the biggest challenges is the lack of infrastructure. It's not there. But the thing is you could essentially build a hydrogen generator for your house out of parts and create your own hydrogen and fuel up your own car when you get home. That is an option, which is cool. That's just something I thought of off the top of my head, because using electrolysis, you can generate your own hydrogen. So you could essentially equip homes with hydrogen generators.
Yeah, and that's kind of what I was talking about ages ago, right? Like I keep saying, I think a future where your house actually makes hydrogen from all the excess electricity, solar, what's going on, to fill up your car or whatever, and fill up your internal tank. So when the sun's not shining or whatever, you've got a potential hydrogen generator that actually powers the home and other things. And you're like, okay, well, this is an interesting future.
Yeah. And there's even other technology for storage of that, as opposed to storing it as hydrogen. If you wanted, there's like this ground storage that you can do instead of using, obviously, lithium-ion batteries to store that additional energy too.
Yeah, and then we talked about sulfur selenium batteries. We talked about a few other types of batteries. I'm drawing a blank on silicon based batteries.
Salt. I think there was a sodium based.
And so we're interesting. There's a few new technologies coming along and seeing this stuff. You're right that we're on early stages, but 10 years ago we didn't have much of the way of an EV infrastructure at all, and now the malls are full. And so how long does it take to say, okay, let's just put some of these refilling stations in every mall? And you start to see, again, a real estate grab, or like you say, got these gasoline infrastructures where you just take over something, assuming we don't know what the protocols are. And I think, what's it take to really put in the storage tanks for these things? How much does it cost would set up a fueling station?
Yeah. Well, the thing is too, I know the reason they have these recharge or these charging stations is because it takes so long to recharge, right? If we're talking hydrogen, it takes minutes to it's obviously longer than filling up your tank with gas, but right now it takes minutes. So it'd be interesting to see, now that we have these individual charging infrastructures, what is it going to look like once hydrogen becomes more mainstream, right? Are we just going to have you plug it in and you have this machine that actually generates the hydrogen as it's pumping it into your car, as opposed to storing it into a tank?
Maybe in the far future. I just don't see that generation on demand being so close. So I think that you'd have to store it on in tanks, just because the creation process is slower. And we're going to talk a little bit about that in a future article today. Are we going to see a entirely new vehicle architecture or a whole new line of hydrogen powered vehicles from Ferrari?
So, yeah. Like you said, so they'll like you said, it's a longer wheelbase, I think you were talking about, or larger vehicle. So they're going to have to redesign their vehicle architectures. They're going to have large, more bulbous body styling to fit the hydrogen tanks. Rear to mid front engine layouts may become more difficult because of those tanks. So it all comes down to the tanks, right? Cabin space may be reduced. The weight, again, you have to come into weight balance. The other thing is, the thing that you don't have to really consider, or maybe a little bit, is exhaust, because now there's no CO2 coming out of the exhaust. So there might be some innovation as far as exhaust layouts that you could do. But yeah, there's the storage is what clashes with form and function for any kind of, especially a supercar like Ferrari.
And that's why they were dealing with the upside down engine and the tanks and stuff. So, which is interesting. Sorry, I lost my train of thought when you were mentioning this. It's a beautiful looking vehicle. When do we think we're going to see them on the road?
Yeah. It all depends. I would say 5 to 7 years. Because I would say a reasonable estimate would see first production maybe 2028 to 2030. Only if Ferrari makes this a priority, in my opinion. And that's going to be an initial limited run, which would be like maybe 100 cars, right? But then wider adoption could happen, I think, in the 2030s. If the hydrogen infrastructure expands properly.
Yeah, and that's the next thing. It's not necessarily under this Ferrari engine, but it's when are our governments going to start embracing a hydrogen future versus a basic EV future, and start incentivizing these projects, because it's got to be the right combination of demand for the hydrogen vehicles, the vehicles being available, and then demand for the fueling stations. Because if there's a private investment, we're not going to build a fueling station. There's only 10 cars in the GTA. No. Yeah. I got to put $10 million into building this safe, large storage tank place where I can pump all this stuff, this filling station, and I'll never get my money back. Why would I do that? So there has to be a long-term.
Yeah, we got the chicken and egg problem right now.
Yeah, and it has to work itself out again. Like we had the electric cars without any chargers anywhere, so it starts somewhere.
Yeah.
And now we've got them.
The thing was you could charge it at home. So right now,
I know.
You feel, yeah.
But that's my point, is that it started with, okay, buy my car and I'll do something at home. And maybe that'll be the case, is, okay, you just buy these, whatever. And you have a little filling thing at home in your garage. Because you could just go down to your local thing and buy a tank.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. We'll have to see.
Like a propane tank kind of thing?
Yeah, exactly. That's what, or have a guy come by and fill up. If you have a house, you could have one of those big propane tanks. Just have a guy come and fill up your hydrogen tank that fills up. He drives around the neighborhood.
Oh my God! Like what's the heating oil that they used to do back in the day? Yeah.
Why not?
Go back to that for now.
So if that's what it takes to make it available, but I think this is really cool technology. It's great to see, companies like Ferrari embrace this. We talked about Toyota. They've been saying EVs aren't the future. We've got that ammonia engine. We've got our hydrogen engine. We've got these things, and we're working. And last time we talked about the world record set for trains with hydrogen.
Trains, yeah. But that's fuel cell. So that's with a battery, right? But still.
But it's still hydrogen technology. And it's just kind of, we're just like, it's great to see us moving in this environmental direction. Because, everything we can do to stop poisoning the planet, I'm all in.
For sure. Yeah.
Any last words on this one before we jump on?
No, I'm excited for this one. So I'm excited to see what others and there'll be a cool one that we'll cover with Porsche that they've designed as well. So we'll cover that one later.
What do you got going on, John?
I don't have much. The only thing coming up is on May 30th. I've got the Sunrise Social, which we talked about on the weekend on May 27th. So
that's not true. It's May 30th is Startup Drinks TO, and May 31st is the Summer Bash you called it the Sunrise Social, but I think it's the Summer Bash from the National Crowdfunding Association.
Oh, no, sorry. I was talking about the non-tech related Sunrise Social Yoga.
The morning one. Yes, you did. Is that May 30th?
No, May 27th.
May 27th. Great.
Oh, and by the way, I don't think that date is right. I think that's what it was last year, May 31st. I don't think it's been scheduled yet. The NACO one.
Oh, the NCFA. Okay, I'll reach out to my contact there. And,
I'd love to go to that kick. I love that. That was a great event.
Yeah, the National Crowdfunding Association, Craig Asano and Lauren Litton, who work hard on that, and there's a couple other people. Forgive me for not remembering everybody's names, but they're a great team of people, and it's always a good event. Yeah, and if it's not May 31st, if it's a different day, I'll probably go. So I'll reach out and talk to them because it's always a good time. And if it's later, I'd like to see if we can give a ticket away at our May 30th Startup Drinks event so we can promote it a little bit. So
absolutely. Yeah.
And if people want to know more about how to get funded, government funding, grant programs, that kind of stuff, where do they go?
Yeah, reach out to me on LinkedIn, John Irwin, JONOH Irwin, IRWIN. Pretty easy to find. Feel free, reach out to me if you have any questions on non-dilutive funding.
And I mentioned startupdrinksto.com. We do startup investor drinks, open bar, pizza. You get up to 20-second pitch. You can pay for more, but there's investors and founders and mentors and funding experts. It's a great time. We do it once a month. So definitely come out and see us there. Yeah. If you're struggling with your business, go to startupcoach.ca. See if I can help you get unstuck. But I'm about to launch a course in June about productizing your knowledge. So if you're a knowledge worker, a subject matter expert, or a technical guru, and you're trying to figure out how to turn your knowledge into a course, a book, or a coaching program, I'm launching a course to teach you how to do it. It's the clearest method to get the knowledge from your head into a course, a book, or program. and I'm launching that in June. The first cohort will be 50% off. I've already teach some individuals, and the feedback has been great. So if you want that, go to startupcoach.ca, reach out to me. I'll put you on the email list, and we'll get you started. It's a really fun program. I've got all the templates. It really, within a very short period of time, you can take your knowledge and turn it around in a week or 2 weeks, depending how quickly you want to work on it.
Love it.
All right, that's it, everyone. Thank you very much for joining us. We are talking about moving these to Thursday mornings on a regular basis, so stay in touch for that, and hopefully like and subscribe on wherever you are.